How my grandpa built the tallest house in town. The year was 1995. My grandpa was always one of those coy men that knew how to make his way to the top of any situation. Sometimes regardless to THST cost to others. But while shady, he was for the most part a decent human. This story isn't about his shady sheet though. It's about how he was able to build the tallest house in town. Even though it was against building code for the county. A general contractor bought a property in this small town and just started building without getting the proper permits for the house. The house was already framed and starting to get sheeted and had the roof built. When the building inspector was called to the property, of course he shut the construction down. The contractor was missing permits, and the house was too tall for what code allowed. So, the job was red tagged and shut down. The general contractor couldn't afford to tear down the house and rebuild. So he just walked away. My grandpa heard about this and went to talk to the bank to see if he could buy the property. He offered them $250,000 for it, but the bank denied his offer and said it was going to be auctioned off. He decided he was going to show up for auction. Day of the auction, the only other person who showed up is another contractor from town, who my grandpa knew. He talks to him and basically lays it out like, "I really want this property, and if you will just walk away from this one, I will make you a partner in the next property I buy." And in a small town like that, my grandpa swears a gentleman's promise. And the other contractor walks away from the auction. They start the bid at $200,000. And my grandpa offers them $100,000. The bank ended up selling for way less than my grandpa originally offered. So, he owns the lot. And instead of demolishing the house that is half built on it, like the county inspector wanted, he just decided to bring all the mistakes to code, keep everything revealed for the inspector, and continued to build on the house. The county inspector hears that instead of being torn down, my grandpa is continuing to build on the house, and drives out there immediately. When he confronts my grandpa shows him that he has brought everything to code. The inspector tells him that the house is still too tall for what the code allows, and needs to be demolished to a legal height. My grandpa simply replied, "Well, that's easy. I'll just import in some dirt to put around the first floor of the house." The inspector became frustrated and left him to build. My grandpa was smart like that. But then, the whole reason I know this story is because my grandpa let my family move in with him after this house was built. And while my dad was paying grandpa rent for us to be there, grandpa drained the equity out of the house, didn't pay the mortgage, and bailed to leave us homeless once the house was foreclosed. So, it's like I said, he was a very clever man, but a little bit shady also. Reminds me of the story about a guy who built an extensive deck system behind his house and then the inspectors wanted rails placed around the whole thing because the height was too above grade. He trucked in topsoil and raised the grade. A co-worker told me he wanted to pour a ground-level concrete deck behind his home, but the inspectors wanted it tied into the home's slab. He asked how far out the deck slab would have to be in order for the tie-in requirement to no longer apply. He said the inspector just grinned and told him how far out to go. Problem avoided. We've got meth heads down the road from us that are on the 4th floor of a house they're building out of garden shed kits from Home Depot. Because a permit for a garden shed is $50 and one for a house is about $3 grand. It's actually kind of impressive. He was at least 30% shady at the beginning of your story. To leave your family homeless intentionally is 100% shady. It's okay to admit that to yourself. He charged you rent while not paying the mortgage and let it foreclose. But he's a decent man? What am I missing? A prior coworker wanted a garage to the rear of his property, but the city he was in wouldn't allow detached garages. He ended up building his garage at the rear of the property with a long, covered breezeway connecting the house to the garage, and got his large garage. He did make sure to build everything exactly to code so that the inspector didn't have anything to complain about, other than the technicality of the garage being connected to the house. Reminds me of my grandfather. He built a garage and the city came by later and told him it went out too far into the back alley and had to be torn down. He cut the back off it in one piece like it was a giant loaf of bread, cut another 6-inch slice out, threw that one away and moved the back of the garage back 6 inches. Problem solved. Hell of a guy. My grandpa swears a gentleman's promise, but he doesn't keep his signed promise to the bank. A bank that gave a loan on an out-of-compliance property yet didn't require him to bring it into compliance. He also screws over his son and grandkids. Why was the inspector frustrated? He would have just said, "Fine, import the dirt and bring it into complaints." You think leaving your family homeless is shady? I can think of more damning words than shady. Damn, didn't see that coming. He was for the most part a decent human. Drained all the equity and left us homeless. These things do not add up. I'm a city planner. My city won't let you do this. Height is measured from original grade. Beginning of story. For the most part a decent human. End of story, leaves his kid and grandkids homeless. A little shady? My dad had some luck playing the game with code enforcement. It ended up with an amazing view. Congrats to Gramps. So he was shady and the house was slim. Where is the MC? I can see where he was malicious to your father and family, but don't see any MC. I'll just import some dirt. There was a building phenomenon in Vancouver, BC called the Vancouver Special. I'm gonna massively generalize, but essentially what happened IIRC is that building code only let you build to a certain size in Vancouver, but your basement could be bigger. Somebody had the bright idea of using the definition of a basement to their advantage and sunk the whole house into the ground a foot or so, and this let them build a what is essentially a 2-story house where previously only a single-story house was allowed. It was a revolution in the housing industry at a time when more houses were desperately needed. Eventually I think it was outlawed because everybody was doing it and entire neighborhoods just looked the same or something. Unexpected, plus you had me in the first half. Lol. No. Adding dirt doesn't get you more height. Building heights are based on the number of stories, not how high you are above the ground. And dirt hauling is stupid expensive. What was he going to do? Make the ground floor a basement? Yeah, right. Fun story. But I don't believe a bit of it. Well, that's easy. I'll just import in some dirt to put around the first floor of the house. Isn't that how the pyramids were built, yummy face?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.